You know, in the Jewish tradition, the word voice and the word vote are the same word. In this country, it was the abolitionists, Christian ministers, who stood against slavery, stood against the denial of rights that we claimed in this country were inalienable, rights that come from God. Voting rights particularly. In order to be a voter in America, you have to be a citizen, 18 years or older, born or naturalized. In order to be a citizen, you have to be a person, because we do not give citizenship to dogs, cats, animals, parakeets. We only give citizenship to 18-year-old human beings who are born or naturalized. In our faith tradition, in order to be a person, you have to be created in the imago Dei, the image of God. So that if I deny your right to vote, I'm denying your personhood, which was the theological problem from the moment in which we decided in this country that black people would be 3/5 of a person in the original. That's what we call in theology heretical ontology, where you suggest that God made it like this, when in fact, God is a God of justice. The first principle of our Constitution is the establishment of justice.
And for a moment, I want to have a grown-up conversation about racism. See, racism is not just about somebody calling you the N-word. Most modern-day racists are too smart for that anyhow. Racism is about policy. Racism is about the ability to take your prejudice and implement policy. Since 2008, we've seen an all-out effort by extremists in suits and ties who sit in political seats working to abridge and deny the right to vote.
You know, the battle for voting rights, especially in the South, is an ongoing battle. North Carolina had the best voting laws in the country, some of the most progressive. North Carolina had risen to the fourth highest per capita increase in voting participation. 66% of African Americans had voted, higher than any time since the 1960s.
Need you to print your name, your address, today's date, and sign. All right, Mr. Foreman, I'll be right back. Okay.
We fought for years to get same-day registration and early voting. That didn't just happen.
Good morning to all the members of the media. We're here this morning on the first day of early voting. First of all, we are here to dramatize the fight that we've been in for more than 3 years to hold on to early voting, same-day registration, and to nullify the unconstitutional race-driven photo ID. All of those things, when the state of North Carolina attempted to undo early voting, to undo same-day registration, and to add a photo ID, were found unconstitutional by the courts. The reality is now, the numbers and the demographics have shifted the South.
That's right.
and therefore are shifting the nation. I believe that that's one of the reasons you have all this talk about fraud. You didn't have all this talk about fraud until all of a sudden African Americans and Latinos began to vote in record numbers.
We are doing everything we can through the media, through organizing, but the sadness of this, it shouldn't be this hard. We shouldn't have had to fight 3 years to protect the right to vote that was codified in 1870 in the 15th Amendment for all people. We shouldn't have had to fight this hard since the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965. We shouldn't have had $6 million of our tax dollars spent in an attempt to abridge the right to vote for North Carolinians and set a path of jurisprudence that is bad for the whole nation.
This is our democracy. This is our democracy.
The very people that talk about rigging elections are trying to rig it through voter suppression. And thank God for that pristine area called a courtroom. It's flawed because everything human beings do is flawed. But thank God when you get a panel of judges under the microscope of the Constitution, that was a flawed document from its beginning, but thank God it's Thurgood Marshall that it could be amended. And thank God when you lay that 14th Amendment on top of these policies, and you lay that 15th Amendment on top of the policies, and then you lay the spirit of the Voting Rights Act on top of that, it serves as a powerful grid to help you maneuver your way through the terrain of lies and come to the truth.
And welcome everyone to our briefing titled An Assessment of Minority Voting Rights Access in the United States.
I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Intentional racism is the highest bar in the law. This was known, this was designed, this was intentional. They cut through surgically all of the laws that affect our voting in the state, and they surgically went in to remove those which had helped African Americans, brown people, and poor people overcome the continued vestiges of voter suppression and voter denial.
It was a lie in 1965 when people argued against the Voting Rights Act by saying systemic racism was a thing of the past. It is a lie in 2018 for those to say that systemic racism is a thing of the past. Since 2008, at least 22 states have enacted a new statewide voter suppression laws, and in 2017, at least 99 additional bills proposing such measures were introduced in 31 states. The majority that took over North Carolina's General Assembly quickly redrew both state legislative districts and U.S. congressional districts in their favor. These very laws were overturned by the current court. They were called unconstitutional. We won, but it was only after this group was in power and had begun to strike down many of the advancements that had been made.
I join my fellow commissioners in thanking our panelists for being with us.
The war is not over. These are tremendous victories. They shake the very landscape of jurisprudence. But as Common says in his song, Glory, the war is not over till the glory comes. And the glory is when we finally get to the day that Dr. King talked about, where the rough places will be made smooth. The crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. And until we can say, without doubt, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Until that means exactly what it says, we are still working toward becoming a more perfect union.